Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Zizhen. First, I want to tell you the story of a little girl. She was about 3 to 4 years old and was waiting in the hospital with her daddy to get a shot. He leaned down and asked her one simple question. "Cora, can you go ask the nurse how much longer we'd still have to wait?" And in that second, her world froze. What if she said the wrong thing? What if the nurse couldn't hear her? And worse yet, what if everyone in the room turns and stares? While her mind was overrun by these negative thoughts, she was standing completely still, face blank. And then her father's voice broke through. "Cora, it's just one simple question. It's easy." So she tried. She took one tentative step forward, another. She was halfway across the room before her courage dissipated and sent her scurrying back. So she tried again and again. 5 times she tried, and 5 times she retreated, until finally her father went himself. And for a moment, she felt relieved, until she turned and saw the expression on her father's face. The cool, crushing disappointment there was enough to break a little part of her. It made her feel utterly worthless and shameful. That little girl was me, and for years to come, I still seek comfort in avoidance. I make my parents get my packages for me because I am honestly terrified of having to time when to tell the courier my package code. Now, anxiety under social situations is something we've all more or less experienced. It could be the sweating palms during a class self-introduction, or the thundering heartbeat before a public speech. And for a long time, I have called this social anxiety. Clinically, social anxiety is an overwhelming fear of social situations where a person might be judged, scrutinized, or humiliated by others. And experts note that rather than a fear of all publicity, it's more a fear of unpredictable social situations. That's part of why I'm able to stand here today, even if other seemingly simpler things still overwhelm me. And as I learn more, I realize that what I have been experiencing might land more accurately on the severe side of shyness rather than social anxiety. But when it comes down to it, the label doesn't matter so much as the experience we've all lived through. So today, when I say social anxiety, I'm not just talking about a clinical diagnosis, but that universal story of self-doubt etched into our minds. Ever heard of the saying, "fake it till you make it"? That's exactly what I tried to do when grocery shopping in our local flea market. You could hear people shouting across the street to learn the price of a vegetable, or bargaining at the top of their lungs for better prices. And there I was, forcing myself to say, how about 10 yuan instead of 11? And that was a disaster. After getting refused and passionately lectured on how hard it is to earn money these days by the spinach lady, I had to reflect. People tell you that being bold and taking that step forward is the only path to success. But being told to be bold, to take that one step forward, is like being told to fight a war against your own mind. Sure, it could push you out of your comfort zone and into a whole new world, but more often than not, it's exhausting and stressful because you are headed into that battle unarmed. This could leave you with vulnerable wounds that could shape your story for years to come. So I set off on a different path. Instead of trying to rip out every anxious story from the roots and risk touching an artery, I learned to edit them with just a few simple shifts in mindset. The first shift for me was to realize that the anxious voices inside me wasn't me, and it didn't get to dictate my success or failure. Rather, it's a misguided protector trying to keep me away from humiliation and rejection. Understanding this removes its power over me. The second shift was to acknowledge my feelings without judgment. It might say, I am feeling scared to speak up right now. And it's okay. Interpreting this as a part of who you are means that you don't get the excuse to label yourself as a failure. And on the contrary, if you take the time to delve deeper into your thoughts, you may emerge learning much more about yourself than if you had simply shut them down and focused on being bold. So by looking at it this way, being bold actually cuts off your path to self-discovery. Once understanding your needs, it's hard for you to think of yourself as a failure as I once did. It's not about becoming an outspoken person despite social anxiety, but about being able to understand your needs and capabilities because of social anxiety. And that, in itself, is a fundamental success. Now, picture yourself in a different situation. You're walking down Batang Everbright City with the intention of getting something to eat. You smell a divine odor and see that the source of that smell, fried squid, is exactly what you have been looking for. Naturally, you head right over. But when you get within 10 feet of the stall, you realize just how many people there are and that you had to yell up to be actually heard by the vendor. And that was it for you. Your stomach stopped fumbling and you thought, I'd be better off without it. Under these circumstances, many people would be very disappointed. They'd say, you were excited about the food for this long, and suddenly you don't want it? What's going on here? And the answer is both nothing and everything. The desire for the food was real, but the few seconds of interaction it took to get it, and the fear of that few seconds, was even more so. Some people would push me into these situations without a second thought and never understand why I backed out at the last second, but my mother always understood. If I had trouble getting something on my own the first time, she would come up beside me, take my arm, and ask what I wanted. She wasn't getting the food for me, she was getting it with me, and I felt like I had backup, like having a shield against the overwhelming feeling of being exposed. That feeling of security is like a seed that could be nurtured into growth. Because I felt safe doing it the first time, I went from standing silently, to talking softly, to finally, one day, naturally brave enough to speak up to the vendor on my own. This was not a battle won by being bold, but a battle won through the help from others and the kindness of repetition. So when our class set up our food stall for the school food festival, I saw myself in the crowd. I saw myself in the form of one or two timid faces, the fidgeting hands when struggling with what to order, and the eyes that constantly darted away to avoid the second of contact. And in that moment, I wasn't just a student selling snacks. I was a person who had been on the other side. So, I made sure my voice was a little warmer, my patience a little longer, and my smile a little softer. I wanted to say, I've been there. I know what it feels like. I understand. And there will always be people out there who understand the choices you make and will never, ever judge you for them, because they've been there too. Understanding your social anxiety doesn't just transform your world. It changes the way we see people around us. So I challenge you. The next time you feel that familiar fear creeping in, don't just try to be bold. Be considerate. Understand your social anxiety, why there are certain things that you can't seem to do, and that those things, by no means, make you a failure. They are the precious stepping stones of a path to self-discovery. And when you see someone else frozen in their tracks, see them not as shy or rude, but as someone in the middle of a story you do not hear. An encouraging smile or an understanding nod could change the path of that story. Finally, I want to tell you another story my anxiety told me. It's the story of that 4-year-old little girl in the waiting room, the one who saw a vast chasm between herself and the nurse, where others only saw 10 steps. And when she reached the edge of that chasm and looked down, what she saw was not rejection and judgment, but herself. And that was the most important lesson of all, because when she stopped seeing her anxiety as a monster, she realized that the power to build a bridge across the chasm had been inside her all along.